Okay, some basic animation. All right, so basically we're doing the bouncing ball, just dressing it up a little bit and seeing how these things can then work in practice. So I have catapults here, and I have a nice little rig, and basically the way this works is I keep it so that I set my mask so I can only select the controllers, okay, the curved controllers. And yeah, so okay, so the first thing I want to do is set up any gross motion, any large motion, okay? So I'm going to have to make a quick decision here on the side view, and I think about frame 60 is when this thing is going to fire off. All right, so here on the catapult's top um, top control, let's see, there we go. Yep, this is yeah. So I will key it here, okay, and key the rocking attribute. And so if that's when it fires, I'm going to, oops, I did not get the rocking attribute. Oops, there we go. Key selected. I like doing key selected most of the time. Let's see, fine, key. Okay, so here on 65, I'm just gonna tilt this thing forward a bit, and I'll probably have to tighten that up. And then on 70, rock it back a bit. Now I have auto key on, but you should be making a change, keying it. Okay, and then on 70, I will put it back to 0. Okay, so there it does a little hop. Now I'm going to hold down Shift. I'm going to go in here to frame 65, grab it, just move it forward so that it's very precise. It's very very quick. So that's gonna hit, head forward, rock back a bit. Okay, probably bring that in quicker, and then have that come down. All right. So you want to start with the big motions first. Okay, and so that's pretty darn big. Okay, let's look at our graph editor. Windows, animation editor, graph editor. All right, well, that's looking pretty good there. So there's my rocking attribute. And, all right, now I'm just going to spike that coming back down. Also just going to make that so that's a smaller hop. Okay. All right, so that's okay. Let's just hit play. Maybe the whole thing's a little on the quick side. So I'll stretch these guys out a bit. All right. So what the rocking attribute does is it just has it so that in one direction it pivots off of this wheel, in the other direction it pivots off of that wheel. And as you see, it's a very small little thing, but you know, still very important. All right, so I'm going to grab my fire attribute here, and I'm going to go to frame 60 and key that to be up. All right. And then let's see, that's going to probably fire in 10 frames. So I'm going to wind that back there to frame 50. So crank that all the way back. And yeah, that's pretty good. Great, so back to our graph editor. Okay. So that's doing a slow out and a slow in. All right, so what I want to do here is, now I'm just doing a middle mouse button, and I'm going to do a slightly slow out. And yeah, so that's going to really snap in there. Okay, so now let's play that. Okay, that's looking decent. Okay, now to really test my timing on this, I'm going to want to do a play blast. All right, so that was a right mouse button over the timeline, and so now it's going to play back a movie for me on the other screen. Interesting. And I hit play, and I look at my timings, and it's okay. It's not brilliant, but I'm trying to keep this simple. Okay, so that's all pretty good. Now, if you've watched the picking up an object tutorial, you know that getting this the ball here so that it follows this is a fair amount of rigging. Okay, so I could set up a set of constraints and turn on and off the constraints, but that's sort of a whole second job in of itself. As you're getting started, you're going to have to do things sort of the dumb way, or the simple way. Okay, so let's make sure. See, that looked fine in the side view there, but it wasn't quite where we needed it to be in the front. Okay, so great. So here at 55, I will set a keyframe. I don't need to key the scales, so I'm gonna lock out the scales there. So that's a right mouse button lock, and so because I don't really need those. All right, and once again, I am putting all the animation on a curve. All right, so the geometry itself, I can't select it because I've turned off my mask, and I just have my animation where I want it. Okay, so now I'm going to go to frame 60 and move this guy up. Notice I move one axis at a time. All right. If I grab the center and move it, it's going to move it in the Z, and then I have to correct that. All righty. So that's looking pretty good. I'm going to have it slightly rolling up there. There we go. Excellent. Now I'm going to change my range slider down here to 50 and bop that the other way so I can really look at these guys. And I'm going to go to the middle frame. So that's, let's see, so it's pretty darn happy there till frame 55. And it starts moving on 60, but I'm not going to do 60 next. I'm going to go to 57, and I'm going to counter move that and just put that back in. All right, so now I'm going to go to 56 and go, hey, that looks pretty good. And 58 does not look good, so notice I'm animating one at a time. And okay, so that's looking decent. And so great, now we're off. So we're going to, and you see how having that major event right there at 60 makes it really easy. You know, you just want to, big events in your animation, you put at precise keyframes. So, all right, so I'm going to fire that off to frame, oh, maybe, all right, I'll whack that there. And then take a good look at this. All right, that seems a bit slow. Okay, so even though I'm going to lengthen the duration a bit, I'm just going to go to frame 95 and maybe 100. All right, I'll go back to. So I've lengthened the duration. It's like, wait, that's going to slow it down. Well, I have a few other things I want to do here. I want to give it a little bit of arc. So I guess maybe about 90. I'm going to move it up. Okay, so I set the end keyframe, and this is one of the patterns you got to get used to. Is you don't keyframe in sequence. Okay, so by doing it this way, if we look back at our graph editor, actually I'm going to bring it up down here. I usually have I have it as a floating window most times. But this time I'll have it there just so you can sort of see what's going on. All right, so I've keyframed it to be vertical at this point. Okay, so it's just odd. Yeah, it's just giving me a keyframe there. I should have keyed it. All right, I should have manually keyed these guys instead of auto key, and this is why I don't want you working with auto key early, or one of the reasons. Is now here at frame 120, you can see the problem is it's not where we put it initially, and you can see why. There's the y-axis. We just tweaked it up. All right, so now I'm going to bring that down. Okay, so that's keyed there. All right, out a bit. Okay, and all right, I'm going to sharpen that curve, and I'm going to sharpen this as well. So do a little bit of slowing. All right, so, and I'm going to zoom in here. Same zoom tools, just hold down Alt, and I just look at that curve, and I go, hey, that's not right. And I look at this guy, and he's a little trickier. So tweak him up a tiny bit, and then I got to go back and check that. So in reading the curve there, I was like, the motion seems wrong, but then it's like, no, okay, yeah, that's gonna have to go down. That's about as high up as I can get it. All right, so let's go back one, maybe. Okay. Now, remember, the client only sees what's in the 3D view. All right, so there we go, and let's watch this thing fire off. Bit of hang time there, and whack. All right, so okay, so if I can get this thing to stop. All right. Now I got some early keyframes on the rotations. I'm going to go back to 60. Make sure that my rotations are keyed at 60. Oops. Come on, there we go. Key. All right, and so I'm going to just give this guy a bit of rotation as he goes around. All right, so good. So now as he comes through, he's rotating. Great. Stop. All right. So that's pretty good. Happy. So he lands at 120, and then I'm going to have them bounce off. And this is where you really control what something is made of. Is this like it's textured as a beach ball? Is it a rock? Is it hitting into something that's rubbery? Is it hitting into something that's absorbent like grass? And so I'm going to pull this guy off, and oops, actually I didn't want to rotate him. All right, well, I'll mop that up in a moment. Okay, so about there, and then down. And so since this is grass, I will just sort of make it thunk into the grass. Okay. All right. So now let's look at these guys. All right, so now I'm looking at the animation curves for the translates. I really can, since I'm not doing anything with the Z, I'm going to delete the 1Z keyframe. And, okay. Right. Okay, so here's the translate X. All right, so this guy's mainly flying in X. This is where he's hit the target. And so I'm going to go up to the little V sign guy here, the break tangents. You can also go get that under break tangents there, right mouse buttoning. Okay, so I've broken the tangents, and then I have the move tool selected up here, and so I'm just going to edit that so it does a bit of a hop. Okay, and sort of line it up with where that keyframe there is. So I'm sort of aiming towards that. And then this guy, okay, that's looking good. All right, so that's the translate X. Now let's look at the translate Y. Yee. All right, so once again, I'm going to break the tangents on this guy. Break tangent. Oops, see. As you see, it can be a very difficult selection at times. So I just drag a box, grab that, point him over to the next keyframe, and grab this guy, and I'm just going to tilt him up. Okay, so now let's see that bit of animation, see what we like about it, see what we hate, and bang. Okay, so as you see, that comes in fairly quickly and does quite a bounce. It is definitely going too horizontal there in the y-axis. So, all right, and so Maya has very conveniently flattened out that because I just went horizontally. I'm going to bring him up a little bit there. Okay, then I have to tweak that so he's pointed. So now let's look at the motion on it. You need to be able to read the motion in the graph editor, but you know, the key thing is, what's it look like in the scene file? Okay, you know, how does it look and move? Okay, so I'm going to stop, grab these two guys, hit A on the keyboard. Oops, see. All right. And so now I'm going to grab these, and I'm going to bring them back a little bit because I thought their timings weren't quite right. You know, it was just taking a little bit too long as it hopped off there. All right, let's watch that again. And this is a simple scene. I can watch it here, and I have a good estimate of what it's going to look like. Once again, to really know what the timing is going to look like, I'm going to have to do a play blast. Because I've done this a bunch of times before, I have a good idea of where things are. But really, when I'm doing an animation, typically you do things just once, right? So you're working on your character, or let's say a building falling over. You got to test it. You got to test it a whole bunch of times. Alrighty. So, pretty happy with that. Now let's look at the rotations. Okay, so the rotation, I'm also going to split that. Okay, so there's the break tangents again. And I'm going to have this guy, all right, backwards rotate after that impact at frame 120. And it's going to go pretty constantly. I guess sort of linear. Yeah, gonna look fairly linear there. Okay, because then when it hits the ground, I want it to stop. You know, I don't want it to keep rotating after it hits the ground. You know, I really want it just to sort of fall in the grass there in the mud. Okay, so now and this is why I put the stripes on the ball, is so we can discuss these issues. Okay, so now it does the counter animation, and bam, it does a stop. All right, so I'm pretty happy with all this. And let's do a quick play blast, see what we get. Guess there's a decent camera view, so things are relatively big for us. And so I like doing the play blast because I have everything set up just via the right mouse button and over the timeline and play blast. Okay, so it's going to slowly calculate going through. And voila. And okay. All right. So now the thing is, that's a good estimate of what the time is. The timings are, to really know, you have to get it all the way out to your publishable media. So that's all the way out to a DVD. If you're projecting it, you want to see it projected at the scale that it's going to be used. Because timings and motion and weight change between television and on a big projected image. Well, I hope that helps. Have fun.